Thank you, Amanda, and thank you, AIP, for inviting me to be a speaker in this forum. I'm very honored. I would like to start by a lot of people ask me if this was my first time in Karachi, and actually it's my second time in Karachi, although my first time was very brief. When I was a kid, I used to take the plane and go to Portugal on the holidays. And the planes that in the 70s and the 80s, they always made a fueling stop in Karachi. So I was being taken care by the hostess. We were flying alone, and the plane was being reloaded, and I was with a friend, and I told him, we are flying from so far away. We are looking at Karachi. It's 5 meters away, and maybe we'll never set foot on this land. So he looked at me, and we started running away from the plane. So when the hostess saw us, they were horrified, and they all started running after us. And they were very surprised. When we touched the floor, we stopped immediately and went back to the flight. So this is my second visit to Karachi. I'd like to start also by giving you some kind of location of that I'm not a typical Mecchanese. Typical Mecchanese is Chinese, South Chinese ethnic. My family is from Goa, and we were moving along a lot through the colonies when I was growing up, and we eventually settled in Macau. I've been practicing since '96 and lived total 20 years in Macau, and I'm going to divide the presentation in 3 sections, where in the first section I'll present a recently finished renovation work. In the second part, I will talk about other architects' recent work in Macau, and I'll finish with the bigger scale work we've been doing. This is a view from Macau seen from the north, and you can, on the right of the picture, is the vicinity of China. It's so close. On the left, there is a sketch of the density of construction that we have in Macau, and this very extreme way of doing the city, because we have very small territory, is in a way compensated by a constant relation with the water. It's a very amphibian city, and we always have very complex environments with water. This is the first work that I did alone with the first commission I had alone with my partner and wife Carlota. And it's for renovation of this building, which is more than 120 years old now, and was commissioned in 1880 to house a legion of police coming from Goa. They were all of them Muslims, and so the name, the Moorish Barracks, was given. It was designed coincidentally by an Italian Mecchanese architect. So it is kind of strange that after 120 years, an Indian and Italian architect are called in to do the renovation. I start with a plan, and this plan is the original plan of the building, and it's organized on this main axis, and it has a very South European typology, and the cultural department had this plan, and they were very nice because they only gave us a copy after we finished the renovation. They said it was confidential. But I wanted to point out that I will start with showing development of the building through time. The building has 3 front sides, and the back of the building is against the slope. So it's actually, that doesn't have an elevation, and it's organized around these 2 patios. And this is the progressive occupation of the spaces with provisional and more or less precarious structures. The building initially had these beautiful roofs that were substituted by slabs. It had, here's the building facing the inner port and the China. And this is a state on how we found the building in 2001. The patios were completely built. The back of the building had so many layers of construction that it had become impossible to access the building. And this is the other patio completely built. So the front, this is one of the front corners, was in a very good state because it has the loggia, which somehow preserved the building. So this was how it was in 2001, and this is how it became after our intervention. We cleaned up the patios. And there were additions on these 2 sides from the 50s that didn't have access to the rest of the building. So we thought the best way to organize the building with was to create this new elevation by occupying the back of the building with vertical connectors. Originally, the building had access. This is where they made the exercises, and it's the kind of mid-level between the top and the bottom. And by introducing these new connecting elements, we made the building work like one single structure. This is the halls, the old halls of the building, and these slabs, we found out they had only 5 centimeters for 10-meter span. So our intervention was to introduce this metallic structure, which we call the running trains, and it's only dry. There is only dry construction. There is no wet construction inside the building. And the walls are maximized, and they have these shelves that either turned inwards for the archives on the top or outwards for the working spaces. And now I'll show you a sequence of going into the building. This is the loggia. And in the loggia, the only thing we did was repaint it white and introduce a new floor. The floor has a pattern that is taken from the railings, which is a 45-degree triangle, square grid, and it was blown up. And what we did is to introduce the lines with as polished stone, so it has this feeling of just after a rain or a monsoon kind of feeling to the space. This is the main hall. The building had progressively a lot of doors introduced here and here, and this actually is the main civic ritual of the buildings, coming up through these stairs or this road, and then transversing the loggia, entering in the hall here, and then going into the building through one of the two exits. So what we did in the hall is we took out a very heavy wooden ceiling, and we introduced this false ceiling that is actually not in the center, so that it is understandable that it's a false ceiling. And we tried to introduce or redesign these elements as a kind of, the building originally was tentatively trying to be an Indian or South Asian building with that kind of taste, and a little bit ingenious and built on imaginaries of what would be India, because the architect never went to India. So we tried to work on this hybrid idea of the Indian imagery and enhance it wherever it made sense to give more strength to the building. So the blue are the office that we saw before, the blue spaces, and the green are the reception areas for where they have the public attendance. These channels that carry to the these old doors. So what we did is we took the plan of the stairs that I will show you later, and the old wall, which for us is very significant because it was where the old building finished. And there is the old wall and the two circles from the plan, and the axis, the door itself is the axis. It looks a little bit like Gucci, but it's the plan. So this is the cross ventilation system and the two patios after clearing. And this is the spaces that contain the stairs to go up, seen from this atrium. You have one first flight, you arrive at this small patio that was existing, and what we did is we just broke the wall there and enlarged the patio so that there is a mid-level entrance for staff at the end of the axis. So the building had grown out of the axis, and we introduced this element in the right position, and some small landings, chatri landings here and here in the corners. And these two stairs that you'll see next, which I always wanted them to be like two elephants with the raised trunks guarding the corners of the building. This is still the central stair with like you have perspectives that cross the whole building. And the chatris with a long stair to the other tower, and there is one corner elephant. Here they are. This is a view of Macau, of the old city and the river. And here you have the very iconic ruins of São Paulo, the freestanding facade, and the new center of growing with offices to the south. This gives you an image of the complexity that is generated in a very small and dense territory. And this is the view from the tower, from the ruins down towards the city center. Now this is a swimming pool that was completed in 2003 by this architect, Alberto Herrero. It's the Olympic swimming pool. I show it because it has a very strong, this is the outside now, this is the entrance of the building, and has this very strong architectural work, which is I like to think of it as architecture made with the bones, because you have the structure is very expressively what creates the spaces and the situations and the access and the exceptions, and then you have this, which are like microstructures that create a system for the lighting and for the detailing, and then you have the ramp that extends into the built form, into this kind of macro structure that is the axis of the building. Next, I decided to show two small buildings, because I think this is something very symptomatic of Macau architecture, which is this very strong taste for very small buildings. This is by architect Diogo Zucht. Is a public library of a very miniature dimension, and you can go up, and then you arrive at a terrace, but on the terrace you don't have water, or that's it. It's like a miniature building confronting these gigantic high-rise towers of housing, and I think this is interesting, because it's like it's the detail of the lighting that goes into the reading room. It's like a symptom of our extreme conditions of very small geopolitical situation, and also pleasure for miniaturization of architecture. This is another, I call it pet architecture, after a Japanese architect. I forgot his name. What his name? Who wrote the book Pet Architecture? Tsukamoto. This one is right in downtown Macau. It's a ticket office for cultural shows, and has a outdoor, which is the dimension of the building itself, is by Carlos Marreiros. I think this is also interesting because it creates a very exciting environment. It's built on the sidewalk, and this is a museum in the square by Vicente Bravo, which is this one. Is a museum that was commissioned to house all the offerings that all the provinces of China gave to Macau in 1999 with a handover. And what I really appreciate about this building, this is the cultural center. With some of you who were in Macau have been here. The opening of the ACA was in that building, and he went and picked all the ingredients, all the celery and the coriander and the curry powder, and he did something which is completely different and very, very controlled and contained, in continuity. The ground floor of the building is completely void, so it creates the access to the square. And this is one of new casinos coming up here in the back. This is the area of the entrance, and every time I cross this building, I suppose that most people feel it. There is a very strong abstractional power that this space has, because you lose your sense of orientation, and this is very exciting because you almost have the feeling that you're walking on the wall. So I turned it around, and I think it makes sense on all ways, and I thought that was very exciting. And then when you go in, you're completely embedded in this experience of structure and metric and everything goes along with it. Even this ramp that ends in the ceiling. This permanent gallery with the offerings and the temporary gallery. And now I go back to our work, and I'm going to talk about the Namvan Square project. This is not the Namvan Square. This is the first scheme that we worked on earlier, but was a kind of where we started to work on this waterfront and public space, which was here. This master plan with the 2 lakes is designed by Manuel Vicente, and it has this idea of the original bay of Macau, the Praia Grande, which was always the center and the symbolic place, because the Portuguese cities were made to be seen. When you arrived from the sea, they were more exposed, like a theater scenery. So it was a curve, and it had been reclaimed. So this was a first reclamation from the 40s, and then there was a later reclamation here, where the Lisboa Hotel, which is an icon, a casino, stands. So what Manuel did is he brought out this curve to make the first lake, and what was looking out the bay suddenly became an urban situation that looks back in and out again, and so this kind of creates the extension for this triangle that is again. Macau is a peninsula, and this again is a peninsula, so it's like a small peninsula. For Manuel calls it the island of power, so where institutions, hotels, and the High Court is there in the assembly. And the casino people had designed and were building in the handover this tower with an entertainment building. Actually, the plot from the plan this was a green area, and they built this on the green area in the backyard, which is funny. So the government wanted to have a significant place to hold this, to complement this facility. And so the square is a place that is coming from the circle and extending out towards the water, what we thought was exciting was to design a space, because we are not in Southern Europe. We are not in a place where there is a strong and traditional relation with the public space in that sense. It's more something experimental, and what we were interested in is in designing a space that would be alive when it is empty, as well as when it is full of people or activities. And also the big challenge for us was to design a public space that had created a comfortable spatial situation where you have cars going around all the time, which is a little bit hallucinating. So this element, this artificial hill, and this object here, and a lot of the small artifacts that appear here are made to always kind of take you away from the traffic. And these are proposals we did. This is the bridge that was being projected. We also, at the time, we did the ideas for the bridge to come in different places closer. The first one was here, where we bring the bridge right over the square, and it was like a car roulette, because we knew this was going to become a casino, so it was fun to have the cars going around like a roulette. But the casino people didn't like that. So this is the square, and the road back to the city. Then what was also very important in this scheme was how to create the connections from the square road level to the lake level, so that access from the center and access from the square to the waterfront park could be natural and continuous. So this is the square actually has this first flyover that completes the circle. Is a place where you go down and pass under it. So there are 2 flyovers, and here's one of the flyovers. The flyovers look very elegant, and the reason that we arrived at this solution was that Manuel, our partner, is very lazy and he doesn't like to walk. So he always goes around by car. And he said, we cannot have the sidewalk higher, because then with the railing, when I go by car, I never see the view. I always have this problem. So what we did is we lowered the sidewalk, and so the edge of the flyover became very, very elegant. It almost looks like it's impossible to stand. So these 2 walls that contain the monumental stairs. And the auditorium that we never thought of this auditorium, as this was the only requirement we have for the space. They only need an auditorium to look at a mega screen that was here that doesn't project anything. So we didn't want to turn the auditorium to the screen because it would look kind of circumstantial. So we tilted it, and actually it's just a space inside a space, and you can look out, and depending on where you sit, you can either be in an enclosed space or look out towards the water and the square. This is the 12th finger that we were requested to break it because the entrances were very small. So we were very happy when we realized that we could break it and keep it here, so that there is a linking element from the square to the small auditorium. And this auditorium, we didn't know what it would be, but it has a lot of activity. Old people go there to play Tai Chi, and the fingers have become very popular with kids. They have competitions of roller skating, and it's very popular for sliding. This is the lower level, the ramp, and the waterfront park. There are several shops here with this wooden deck right on the water, which is here. And the 2 flyovers, one is there and the other one is there. And this is from the tower. There was a very exciting period last summer when on the mega screen they have bungee jumping from here where the picture was taken, and they have an advertisement of Panasonic of a guy jumping into the square, and so you feel like you see this image where you're going to crash into the square. And you are in the square and looking at the screen, so it's a simultaneous experience of space and that, which is really, really exciting. But they don't pass it anymore. After the square, the bridge was built, and actually the plan is not complete. So this is more or less the outline of the lake. We did this park, which is just built on the leftovers of the bridge and the roads at ground level. And the bridge is a very monumental object, and it comes down in a very strange way. It has these 2 flyovers to this side and this very big tongue coming in on the other side. So there were a lot of issues that we thought were important to again try to use this opportunity to create pedestrian and places for people to use in a leisurely way, which are very close and overlapping with cars, but which in some way can coexist. This is the children's park, which is on the river side of water, and a mega slide, which is fun because when it's full you have a lot of kids sliding at the same time and they'll all crash in the center. And the bridge, we did this small pedestrian bridge under the bridge. On the lake side there is this 3 levels of water. There's a fountain here that projects water to this tank, and then from here the water has a channel that takes it out. What I like about the scheme, it was not completely controlled in the design phase, is that this element, which is enormous, became a kind of like a curved water duct or macro structure that frames the landscape. And the park is very indifferent towards the tracing of the pillars, because we didn't want people to follow these kind of strange points. But it always more or less follows, so you have a line of shadow where you can walk for almost 1 kilometer. When it rains it's nice because you covered magically. And there on the end it's again China, and we have this small yellow pavilion. I like it a lot because we put some bamboos there, and usually China is so close that we don't even realize it's there. But with these frames, you realize that we can frame China. So we realize that there is some poetic in this closeness. Again, seen from the tower, it's this area and this area. And this revetment was very badly done in a very short time by the people from the bridge. So we could not add it up more than 2 meters or reduce less than more than 2 meters. But we wanted to work on this kind of pattern that we thought was coming from, was very much in the kind of pattern that we find this landscape around us in these mountains. This is our 2 masterpieces sitting on top of the park, on the tower. And I would like to, this is the last thing that I wanted to show with I call it scale it as an infant delirium. And I was very happy to hear Dwangri talk about something very similar, which is architecture into design, transform into design, and design transform into architecture. This is actually my first commission for a high-rise housing scheme. It was never built. I was working on there is a mountain here on the back, so I wanted to create this patio, and the main road is here on the front. This patio where people would, it's like an entrance patio, and you have this movement of volumes that are not so obvious as in plan a cylinder, but give you the sense of the cylinder ascending. And then it didn't go through, and then I found myself working on this. I had nothing else to do, so I was at a certain point I realized that I was building my first high-rise. Vengeance to the client. This is a fit together furniture. that is made with repetitive elements. And then I had done this chair. In 2003, I heard a conference by Oscar Niemeyer, and he talked a lot about how he designed buildings with one line. And I was trying to do a chair with one line for a long time. And after hearing him talk about the buildings he was doing in Niterói, and they were all done with a line, and basically that extended to most of his work. So I came back and I worked on this, what became this chair, which is like a pedestal to the body. And right after we came from the fair, we had a client who wanted to, this is in China, and the client that had his plot right in the center of a city in Hunan province. And he wanted to build a bank. Sorry, I don't have pictures with the roads, but this object, the plot, is sitting on the crossroads of the three roads that give access to the center. So it's very much the center. And there's a very famous mountain, which is the Moon Hill close by. He wanted to do a bank and a housing tower, and he said he wanted two buildings, but it had to be one building. So it sounded impossible, and we tried to make him speak, but it was always ended up being the housing. You could not see the housing, but it had to be there, obviously, and it had to be a separate building, but it couldn't look like another building. So we thought it was, we were very excited about the idea of making one building fall down and become two. So this is the bank tower, and this is the housing tower, and they meet here in a restaurant and sports facility that serve both the towers. And now I'd just like to show you a short movie that we did for the Biennale on the Square.